I have been Suwon's live-in husband for 3 years, relying on her black card every day to eat, drink, and have fun, and being denounced by the entire internet as the softest parasite. Over the past 3 years, I spent my wife's money to buy luxury cars and famous watches, living as a useless person in everyone's eyes, with no job and no career. My only daily task was taking the black card she gave me to go shopping and spend money, becoming the most useless and spineless existence in the entire capital. I thought life would continue like this in a completely muddled way, until that day when the sky fell. Yushi Group was maliciously shorted by someone, and its capital chain completely snapped. A market value of billions was wiped out overnight, properties were left unfinished, factories stopped operating, partners turned their faces, and creditors came knocking at the door. The once infinitely glorious and untouchable business queen plunged to rock bottom overnight. The luxury mansion, sports cars, and bank deposits under her name were all seized and frozen. She fell straight from the clouds into the mud. The moment the news broke, the entire internet was watching it as a joke, and the ones everyone laughed at the loudest were targeted at me. Suwon King is bankrupt, so that parasite husband of hers will definitely run away immediately. He lived off of her for 3 years, and now that there's nothing left to eat, if he doesn't run, is he waiting to starve? That kind of man who only knows how to spend money is the least reliable. I heard these words crystal clear while sitting inside a Bugatti. Actually, I'm an imposter. Just an hour ago, I was still an engineer lying in the hospital recovering from injuries. The next second, I was dragged into this physical shell by a strange force. That idiot of an original owner had blindly thrown away a precious treasure and was judged as a failure by the obsession reclamation system, getting kicked out of this world directly, while I became the one to pick up the pieces. The cold, electronic voice in my mind was still echoing. Task bound. Within 1 year, assist Suwon King to rebuild a 100 billion business empire. Failure penalty. Permanent retention in this world, with your soul assimilated into the original owner's residual consciousness. Permanent retention and assimilation. Then what's the difference between being dead? I stared at the ceiling of the Bugatti with only one thought in my mind: if I wanted to go home. I had to make this woman win. Whether I liked it or not, I had to clean up this damn mess. Reaching a few dozen billion within a year, this crappy task is completely screwing with me, right? And the system hasn't even given me any starting resources yet. Listening to the surrounding gossip, I cursed the original owner in my heart for being a complete piece of trash, relying entirely on his wife for food and clothing. Having nothing going for him but a handsome pale face, he totally deserved to be called a gigolo. I walked into the 60 square meter apartment that Suwon King temporarily rented. The moment I opened the door, my heart sank heavily. A shabby and desolate atmosphere hit me right in the face, making me feel incredibly uncomfortable all over. There was no foyer, no chandelier, and not a single shred of the luxury from that former 1,000 square meter villa. The walls were mottled, and the floor was old and worn. The moment I sat down, the dilapidated sofa let out a strange creaking screech, sending a shiver down my spine. The apartment was a complete and utter mess. Stacked in the corner were over 100 brand new, unopened Rolex watches. They were all the things that the scumbag of an original owner had prepared to hoard before running away. The coffee table was covered in thick dust, the floor was old and gray, and the corners were caked in thick grime. Every single glance revealed nothing but pure misery. I stood on the spot, feeling sour and bitter in my heart, terribly choked up. Whenever I thought about those awful things done in the past, I felt both furious and distressed. Just how heartless was the original owner to completely ignore such a wonderful person. I took a deep breath, suppressing the complex emotions in my heart. I picked up the mop and bit by bit started cleaning the rental apartment to make it look like a place fit for human habitation. After finishing the cleanup, I pushed open the door to Suwon King's room. Inside, there was only a writing desk, a bookshelf, and a bed. A female CEO who once lived in a 1,000 square meter luxury villa, raised as a precious princess since childhood, now has to suffer through this kind of hardship. But even after going bankrupt, she didn't kick me out and still let me stay here, without a single word of blame. I looked around the empty apartment, then turned around and went downstairs to the supermarket to buy daily necessities. Opening my wallet, there was only 500 yuan left, which was enough to get by for a while. Following the styles she was used to in my memory, I bought them all together and brought them back. By the time I got home, it was already late, and my stomach was growling with hunger. The fridge was completely empty. As busy as she was, she had no time to cook at all. I simply ordered a lamb chop rice bowl. Just then, there was a sound from the entrance. Suwon King was back. I looked up at her. She was still breathtakingly beautiful. With a pair of bright, watery eyes, she looked at me expressionlessly, but when her gaze swept across the clean and tidy apartment, her eyes visibly paused for a moment. Is the money you used to hire a cleaner still enough? My eyes darted away, my hands tightly gripping the takeout box. Faced with her deep-seated innate nobility, I as an imposter still felt a bit nervous, as if all my thoughts had nowhere to hide in front of her. I swept it myself. You cleaned it. Yes, I cleaned it. Sorry for making things difficult for you. No. You don't need to apologize to me. As a husband, I have never fulfilled my responsibilities, so why should she apologize to me? I really couldn't figure out what the original owner's grandfather had done to make such a heavenly beautiful female CEO marry a completely useless guy. Su Wanking walked over and sat down beside me, gently pushing a printed divorce agreement in front of me. The paper was very thin, yet it felt oppressively heavy. I have already settled the funds. Right now, I only have 50,000 yuan to give you. If you haven't found a place to stay, you can continue living here. I will work hard to make money to compensate you 3,000 yuan a month. If you think it's fine, go ahead and sign it. Go to sign it. Chen Yu. I didn't touch the agreement, gently pushing it back to her. The room was very quiet, so quiet that we could hear each other's breathing. She had already done everything she possibly could for me. Seeing her expression grow disheartened, I quickly explained I'm not getting a divorce and I don't want your money. I've accepted reality. Before it was me dragging you down. From now on, I'll go make money. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. No divorce. You just said yesterday. I secretly cursed the original owner in my heart. Yesterday, he was still throwing a tantrum, scolding her for being useless, and unable to give him the life he wanted, vowing to get a divorce the very next day, not cherishing such a good wife, and even thinking about clinging to some other rich sugar mommy instead. I could only find an excuse to smooth it over. The gap was too big, so I couldn't accept it for a moment. I drank too much. Those weren't my real thoughts. Now I've thought it through. Since we're married, we should bear it together. When you had money, you were willing to spend it on me. Now that you're in trouble, how could I possibly abandon you? I will work hard to make money to support myself, and maybe I can support you too. Su Wanking smiled faintly. The way Su Wanking looked at me became increasingly strange, as if she didn't recognize me anymore. You don't want a divorce? Then let's leave it like this for now. Whenever you want a divorce, just tell me. She got up and walked toward the bathroom. The moment she pushed open the door, she was visibly stunned. Inside the empty bathroom, the toiletries she frequently used had been neatly laid out. She was surprised for a brief second before going in to wash up. When she came out, she looked at me and said softly, "Thank you. Go to bed early too." I scratched my head in embarrassment and quickly finished washing up as well. Returning to my room, I immediately registered a shop on Shanyu, preparing to sell off that box of Rolexes. After sorting everything out, I lay down on the bed. I still had to wake up early tomorrow to buy groceries. 6 a.m. The old residential district was filled with the smell of grease from breakfast stalls. I bolted upright from the hard wooden bed, with no soft latex mattress, no freshly ground coffee, only a stiff wooden bed frame, and the sounds of electric scooter horns outside the window. I rubbed my throbbing temples. The discomfort of transmigrating hadn't worn off yet. That cold notification voice in my mind rang out again. Time limit 1 year. Rebuild a 100 billion business empire. Failure means permanent retention in this world. I'm so done. A few dozen billion, with no system, no golden finger, starting with nothing but a box of unopened Rolexes, and a beautiful, completely exhausted wife who just went bankrupt. This start is even lower than hell mode. I didn't think any further. The fridge was completely empty, so I immediately went out to buy groceries. Back home, I put on the 9.9 yuan apron I bought on the street and turned on the stove to cook. The gas stove let out a piercing noise, and the water in the pot quickly came to a boil. I cooked 2 bowls of egg noodles, adding a soft-boiled egg to each, and drizzling a few drops of sesame oil. Simple yet steaming hot. Just as the noodles were brought to the table, the bedroom door opened. Su Wanking wore a shirt washed out to a pale white, her long hair loosely draped around her shoulders, with a bare face. She lacked a bit of a female CEO's sharpness, and gained a bit of fragile gentleness instead. She clearly didn't expect that I would get up this early, much less that the aroma of food would drift from the kitchen. Her beautiful eyes were full of surprise. I felt a bit uncomfortable from her staring, so I pushed the noodles in front of her. "You're awake, hurry up and eat." Freshly cooked egg noodles. She stood on the spot, not moving for a long time, looking down at that bowl of noodles, then looking at the apron on my body. Her voice trembled slightly. "You made this otherwise." I smiled. "I can't always let you eat takeout. You've been so tired lately, so eating something hot will make you feel better." She sat down in silence, picking up her chopsticks and taking small bites. 3 years of marriage. She supported me for 3 years, giving me money, giving me cars, giving me everything I wanted. Yet she never received a single word of care from me. The sins committed by the original owner must ultimately be repaid by me. "Eat slowly. There's more if it's not enough," I said softly. Just then, bang bang, bang, a burst of hurried and arrogant knocking suddenly rang out, breaking the peace inside the room. I frowned. Who could be so rude in this crappy residential district? Su Wanking's hand holding the noodles paused abruptly, her face sinking in an instant. I got up and walked to the door. The moment I pulled it open, standing outside was a woman heavily covered in makeup, wrapped in designer brands from head to toe, with a pungent perfume smell, looking exquisite yet carrying an aggressive arrogance. It was Liu Xiaoyi, the rich sugar mommy that the original owner was still longing for just yesterday. She was wealthy, but compared to the former Su Wanking, she was more than a class below. Seeing me, Liu Xiaoyi's eyes lit up, scanning me from top to bottom. her tone frivolous and proud. Chen Yu, I heard Su Wanqing went bankrupt, so I specially came to pick you up. She leaned a bit closer to me, her fingernails gently scratching my arm, her words carrying a seductive tone. What future is there in staying with that bankrupt woman? As long as you come with me, I'll support you. Money, cars, designer brands. I'll give them all to you, making you even more glorious than when she was around. She spoke bluntly, making no attempt to hide her purpose. From my peripheral vision, I noticed the fingers of Su Wanqing behind me holding the chopsticks suddenly tightened, turning completely white as her expression turned cold bit by bit. Lu Xiaoyi's face truly disgusted me. I directly took a step back to distance myself from her. What enraged me even more was that Su Wanqing was right behind me. Without saying a single word, her fingers turned white. She is someone proud to her very bones. So how could she take this kind of insult? She was bankrupt, and my leaving would only wound her heart once again. A surge of anger rushed straight to my head. I could be scolded or looked down upon, but absolutely no one could bully her like this. I took a step forward and spoke coldly. You've got the wrong door. I won't go with you, much less need you to support me. Su Wanqing is my wife, and I'm not going anywhere. The smile on Liu Xiaoyi's face instantly froze, clearly not expecting that I would refuse. She let out a scoffing laugh, looking at the dilapidated rental apartment with disdain. Chen Yu, don't be ungrateful when you're given a chance. Su Wanqing is nothing but a pauper now. Why are you still staying by her side? Do you really plan to suffer for the rest of your life? As long as you nod your head, I guarantee you, get lost. I interrupted her coldly. My voice wasn't loud, yet it carried a daunting sense of pressure. My business is none of your concern. If you dare come to harass us again, don't blame me for being impolite. After saying that, I slammed the door shut right in her face with a loud bang. Outside the door, Liu Xiaoyi's angry curses came through the door panel, sounding piercing and embarrassing. A dead silence fell inside the room. I turned around, meeting Su Wanqing's gaze as she looked straight over. She stared at me, shock welling up in the depths of her eyes, along with confusion. I met her gaze, my tone calm yet firm. Ignore her. Let's eat, the noodles are getting cold. Su Wanqing didn't say anything, just nodded her head gently, and picked up her chopsticks again. After packing her things, she prepared to head out. As she left, she said softly, I'll be back very late, so don't wait up for me. You go ahead and eat, I'll clear the bowls and chopsticks. My eyes fell on that bulging cardboard box in the corner. Inside were more than 100 Rolex watches that the original owner had squandered money to collect over 3 years. Brand new and unopened. They used to be his toys for showing off, but now they were the only capital I could convert into cash. I squatted down to open it, casually took out a submariner, and listed it directly on Shanyu. I set the price 10% lower than the market rate, solely aiming for the fastest sale. According to a rough calculation, selling them all could net over 1 million, which would be enough to serve as startup capital for Su Wanqing. But this was still far from enough. My gaze landed on that Bugatti Veyron downstairs. This car was bought by Su Wanqing after the original owner shamelessly nagged her. Aside from showing off, it was completely useless. But right now, it was my biggest hope to help ease her pressure. Without the slightest hesitation, I dug out a second-hand car dealer's number and dialed it directly. Young Master Chen, how do you have time to contact me today? Are you buying my Bugatti? My tone was decisive. Come over right away to inspect the car. The full payment must account today. The price can be a bit lower, as long as it's fast. The dealer was stunned for a moment, and then his voice trembled with excitement. Really, young Master Chen, I'll be there immediately. 10 minutes. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the supercar downstairs, my heart completely unbothered. A status symbol for saving face was worthless in front of her debts. Before long, the car dealer arrived in a frantic rush. Inspecting the car and signing the contract took less than an hour in total. A notification pops up on my mobile banking, 5 million yuan, full payment received. I won't keep a single cent of this money, and will give it all to her. Compared to paying off the debt and rebuilding a 100 billion empire, it was insignificant. But for us right now, it was the most realistic form of reassurance. By the time I finished everything, the sky was gradually darkening. The money from selling the car had already cleared, and half of the watches listed on Xianyu were sold out, ready to be shipped tomorrow. But I knew Su Wanqing was proud and fiercely competitive. If I give him the money directly, she will definitely refuse it firmly. I didn't bring it up turning around into the kitchen instead. I remember she skipped dinner for years, and her stomach had long developed issues. Having eaten noodles during the day, she certainly wouldn't be able to handle solid food at night. I washed some millet, sliced some yam, and slowly simmered the porridge over a low flame, neither too thick nor too watery, warm, soft, and nourishing for the stomach. It was perfect for her. The faint aroma of rice soon wafted through the room. At 7:30, the door lock clicked. Su Wanqing was back. She was thoroughly exhausted, her face even paler than in the morning, her lips completely colorless, clearly having forced herself to hold on outside all day. Smelling the aroma as she stepped inside, she visibly froze. Are you making porridge? Her voice was very soft, carrying a trace of hoarseness. Yeah, I replied, serving the porridge. Your stomach isn't great, so don't always keep it empty. She stood in place, subconsciously refusing. I don't eat dinner. This isn't a heavy meal. I placed the bowl in front of her, my tone calm. It's to nourish your stomach. Just half a bowl is fine. She looked at the bowl of warm porridge, then looked at me, remaining silent for a long time. Ultimately, she picked up the spoon and took small sips, moving very slowly but no longer pushing it away. The room was very quiet, with only the soft clinking of the spoon against the bowl. I didn't press her about the company matters, no questions about creditors, and no questions about her difficulties. The original owner wouldn't understand even if told, so it was better not to ask. Some pain, if asked about, would only make her feel more embarrassed. Only after she put down her spoon did I gently push the bank card to the corner of the table. There's 5 million in here. My voice wasn't loud. I sold the Bugatti. She immediately tried to push the card back. You keep it and use it. It's not for you to spend, it's for you to pay off the debt. I pressed down on her hand, the force very light, yet firm. You bought the car and I drove it for free for 3 years. Selling it now to help you fill the hole is not charity. It's what I should do. Her lips were pursed very tightly. Having been fiercely competitive her whole life, at this moment she couldn't even find words to refute. You keep it. I pushed the card a bit further forward. You don't need to feel like you owe me. Just consider it as me returning a part of what I've cost you over these past 3 years for food and expenses first. She stared at me, emotion surging in the depths of her eyes, yet she remained silent. Proud, stubborn, embarrassed, and with a trace of moving emotion she didn't want to admit. I didn't press her any further, getting up to clear the bowls and chopsticks. If you really feel uncomfortable about it, just consider it as a loan from me. When you pick yourself back up in the future, you can pay me back with interest. She didn't make a sound, but she didn't push the card back either. I poured a cup of warm water and placed it by her hand. Rest early. Tomorrow morning I'll still make breakfast for you. She gave a soft hum, the sound so gentle it melted into the night. Before entering my room, I looked back and saw her sitting alone under the light, her shoulders no longer tensed up. I walked quietly into the second bedroom on tiptoe, leaving only a small night light in the living room without causing any disturbance. The dim yellow light wasn't piercing. Not long after, the door to the master bedroom gently closed, but the light inside remained on. She must be staying up late again to handle that chaotic mess. Checking accounts, contacting creditors, reassuring employees, and salvaging partnerships, every single piece of it could crush a person. In the past, she had the entire Su family business behind her, but now she only has herself. Not long after, a slight noise came from next door. The sound of a chair shifting, followed by a very soft and suppressed groan. It was very short, but enough for me to tell her stomach was hurting. I hesitated for 2 seconds, then knocked gently on the door. Without waiting for an answer, I slowly pushed it open, leaving a crack. Only the small bedside lamp was on in the room. Su Wangking was bending over, with one hand pressed against her stomach, her brow slightly furrowed. Seeing me come in, she subconsciously straightened her back, pretending nothing was wrong. I didn't call her out, standing at the doorway. There's stomach medicine in the drawer. I picked it up when I was buying daily necessities. Got it. I placed a glass of warm water on the nightstand, taking a step back to keep a distance that would reassure her. She didn't chase me away, nor did she say much, which counted as silent consent. I gently closed the door. The moment the door was shut, the crisp sound of popping pills came from inside. That night, the light in her room stayed on until very late. The next morning, I woke up even earlier than my alarm. Afraid of waking her, I quietly washed up and went downstairs on tiptoe. I bought fresh millet, pumpkin, and green vegetables. Returning to the rental apartment, I simmered them over a low flame, cooking up a pot of warm and stomach-nourishing porridge. When the porridge was almost ready, the master bedroom door gently opened. Su Wangking had changed into simple, clean clothes, her hair tied up casually. Her complexion looked a bit better, though a faint exhaustion still lingered in her eyes. Smelling the aroma, her gaze subconsciously landed on the kitchen. Before I could speak, she spoke softly first, troubling you again. No trouble at all. I served the porridge. Hurry up and eat. It's bad for your stomach if it gets cold. She nodded, sitting down at the table, without yesterday's awkwardness. Nor did she deliberately keep her distance, as if she had already grown accustomed to this kind of morning. The two of us quietly ate breakfast, and neither of us brought up last night's stomach pain, nor that card with 5 million yuan. There were things she tacitly accepted, so I understood. Not exposing them was the greatest respect we could give each other. Halfway through the meal, she suddenly spoke up softly. I'll be back very early this afternoon. There are some matters I want to handle at home. Tonight I'll stir-fry some dishes. She looked up at me, her eyes shifting slightly, clearly unable to believe it. The me who used to never even step into the kitchen could actually cook. After she left, I dragged out that box of Rolexes to pack them up, sticking labels and filling in addresses, remaining completely quiet throughout the process. Some things have more weight when done rather than said. Once everything was fully packed, I sent a message to the courier to pick them up at 5 p.m. The timing was set right around when she would return. As evening approached, the door lock clicked softly, and Su Wan King was back. The moment she stepped inside, her gaze first landed on the corner of the living room, looking at that pile of neatly arranged packages. Her eyes widened slightly. I sold some things and am sending out the packages. My tone was casual, as if talking about the most ordinary matter. She didn't press to know what they were, nor did she ask how much they sold for. Only staring at those packages, her expression shifting subtly. After a brief silence, she gave a soft hum. Why did you sell the watches? Have you caught your eye on some new watches lately? And don't want these old ones anymore. Of course, I couldn't say I sold them to give her startup capital. With her pride, she would definitely refuse. Before she had a chance to speak, her phone suddenly rang. It was a call from her secretary, Wang Yu. She walked over to the window to answer it. Her voice wasn't kept very loud, but it was enough for me to clearly hear a few lines. President Su, do we need to cancel tonight's social engagement? No need, I'm not going out. Then for your dinner, I'm going home. Someone is cooking. He made breakfast this morning too. Mr. Chen made it. Yes. The secretary on the other end was stunned for quite a while, then said with a smile, Mr. Chen really is different now. Making porridge in the morning was already unprecedented, and I didn't expect he would cook dinner too. I smiled faintly, turned around and walked into the kitchen. Chopping vegetables, tossing them into the wok, and stir-frying. My movements weren't fast but were very steady. As the smell of cooking oil and salt rose, the small kitchen was slowly filled with the aroma of food. Before long, 2 dishes and a soup were ready. I turned off the stove and brought them to the old dining table in the living room. Dinner's ready. Su Wan King looked up from her desk, gave a soft response, stood up, walked over and sat down. There was no exquisite plating on the table, just the most ordinary home-cooked meal. But looking at the food in front of her, her gaze visibly paused for a moment. The two of us quietly ate our meal. Without any extra words yet, it didn't feel awkward either. Occasionally, I looked up to see her taking small bites, looking much more relaxed than yesterday. After eating, I stacked the bowls and chopsticks together, stood up and carried them into the kitchen. Let me do it. I'll handle it. Go and rest. My tone was casual, leaving no room for her to be polite. Her hand froze in mid-air for a brief moment, then she gently drew it back, no longer insisting. I turned on the faucet, the water rushing down with a splash, washing the bowls, wiping the wok, tidying the countertop, and cleaning the kitchen with neat and quiet movements. By the time I dried my hands and walked out of the kitchen, she had already sat back in front of her desk, facing the computer to handle her work. Only 2 kinds of sounds were left in the living room. The sound of her softly tapping the keyboard, and the subtle noise of me clearing the table. After getting everything properly sorted out, I quietly glanced at her. She was focused on the screen and didn't turn her head, the lines of her profile looking clean and sharp. The refinement of her former luxurious life was still there, only lacking a bit of her business sharpness and gaining a touch of softness after her exhaustion. The light fell on the bridge of her perky nose, her lips a bit pale yet still very attractive. Her frame was on the slimmer side, and after running around continuously these past few days, her shoulder lines appeared even thinner. Yet her spine was still held perfectly straight, even when placed inside a rundown rental apartment. The precious pride engraved in her bones couldn't be hidden. Her long hair was casually tied behind her head, with a few stray strands clinging to the side of her neck, looking quiet yet fragile. Her fingers were slender and fair, tapping on the keyboard lightly and quickly, her fingertips turning slightly white from the force. Even though she was holding up a pile of chaotic mess, she showed incredible restraint, barely even frowning. This forced endurance made people feel reassured, yet it also made one's heart ache for her. I didn't step forward to disturb her, only watching quietly for a brief moment. She didn't turn around but seemed to perceive something, her fingertips pausing gently for half a second, before continuing to type out a line of words. I went back into my bedroom, easing the force as I closed the door. I had to find a way to make money to ease her burden. I decided to go back to my old trade, drone research, development, and repair. In the past, relying on this craftsmanship, I had mastered the entire low-altitude industry chain, ranging from core component repair to complete aircraft customizations, aerial photography surveying, and industrial inspection solutions flawless in every aspect. In this world with no system and no golden finger, this was the only solid skill I could grasp in my hands. I pulled over a chair and sat down, opened my laptop, and logged into local industrial equipment forums, drone communities, and repair order-taking platforms, registering accounts, and completing my profiles. I listed my professional repair, upgrade, debugging, and modification services online. The pricing was set neither too high nor too low, just enough to attract customers in urgent need of repairs, while remaining worthy of my expertise. Before waiting too long, a pop-up message jumped out. It was an urgent order from an aerial photography studio. 2 aerial drones had crashed and were damaged, with their gimbals jammed, and their motors burned out. Yet they had to rush to a shooting assignment tomorrow morning. They were willing to pay extra for an expedited repair. I immediately replied to accept the order, arranging to pick up the machines half an hour later. When leaving, I deliberately made my movements light, glancing at the living room through the crack in the door. Su Wan King was still buried in front of her computer, her brow slightly furrowed, likely communicating with creditors or partners. I didn't understand and didn't press, refraining from stepping forward to disturb her. I simply grabbed my keys and tool bag and gently shut the front door behind me. The hallway lights of the old residential district were dim, and the night wind carried a chill. I gripped the repair tools in my hand tightly. The money exchanged from selling the car and watches could relieve her pressing needs for the moment. But if I wanted to rebuild a 100 billion business empire within a year, relying on liquidating assets would never be enough. I had to rely on my own technology, starting from taking the most basic repair orders and plunging step by step into the low-altitude economy sector. Accumulating capital from small orders and building a reputation from technical skill, I would slowly construct a new foundation that belongs to us. The 100 billion goal was very far, but the path is walked out step by step. When I carried the 2 crashed drones and returned to the rental apartment, the living room light was still on. Hearing the noise, Su Wanqing looked up from her desk, her gaze landing on the dust-covered machines in my arms, a trace of doubt flashing through her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Picked up some work." I smiled faintly, keeping my tone light, because I didn't want her to worry. "Repairing drones to earn some pocket money." She stared straight at me, noticing that my body was no longer covered in designer brands, but instead dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, holding 2 battered machines in my arms, with no trace of the past profligacy left in my eyes, only a grounded, down-to-earth presence. The freeloader who did nothing but eat, drink, and play for 3 years was now not only doing laundry and cooking, but even heading out in the middle of the night to pick up repair work. She opened her mouth, but in the end only said softly, "Don't push yourself too hard." "Yeah, I won't." Carrying the machines, I walked into the second bedroom. Before closing the door, I glanced back at her. "You should rest early too. Don't stay up too late." The bedroom door gently clicked shut. I sat in front of the desk, turned on the desk lamp, and unscrewed the very first screw. The subtle sound of metal clinking was exceptionally clear in the quiet night. The lighting in the living room gradually softened. After processing the last email, Su Wanqing gently closed her laptop, her shoulders feeling slightly sore and numb as she stood up. She raised her hand to rub the back of her neck, her movements languid, yet carrying a touch of casual sexiness. Then she stepped into the bathroom to prepare for a shower. Soon the sound of rushing water came from inside. It wasn't loud, yet it was exceptionally clear in this quiet small apartment. Sitting in front of the desk in the second bedroom, I was still gripping the screwdriver in my hand. But the drone parts before my eyes had long blurred out of focus. My ears were completely filled with the splashing sound of water, and her elegant yet breathtaking face from earlier today uncontrollably surfaced in my mind, along with the faint lines beneath her slender neck. When she bent over just now, my Adam's apple bobbed subconsciously. I shook my head vigorously, forcing my attention back to the machine. Now was not the time to be thinking about these things. But the sound of water seemed to possess a magic quality, making one's heart itch with temptation. Unsure of how much time had passed, the sound of water stopped, and the bathroom door was gently pulled open to leave a crack. Warm steam mixed with the faint scent of body wash drifted out. Su Wanqing walked out, having just finished her shower, her long damp hair draped loosely over her shoulders, with a few wet strands clinging to her fair neck. Her cheeks carried a flush of red, and she wore simple cotton pajamas, the collar slightly loose, offering a faint glimpse of her delicate collarbones. The cool, elegant, and assertive female CEO of daily life was now as soft as a pool of warm water. She looked up and happened to meet my gaze. The moment our eyes met, the tips of her ears turned slightly warm, and she subconsciously averted her gaze. "You should go shower too. The water is still hot." "Okay." Closing the door, the warm steam greeted my face. The mirror was covered in a thin mist, and with a touch of my fingertips, it was filled with the temperature she left behind. I turned on the faucet, splashing cold water onto my face, to barely suppress the dry heat rushing up. Yet my mind was completely filled with her watery eyes from just now, and her flushing ears. The freeloader of 3 years turning over a new leaf in one day? Even my heartbeat had become uncontrollable. Outside the door, she was still in the living room. Inside the door, my heart drummed wildly. This small, dilapidated rental apartment had suddenly become uncomfortably hot. I came out after finishing my shower, still carrying a faint trace of moisture on my body. My pajama collar hung loosely, revealing a distinct Adam's apple. Only a small, warm yellow light was on in the living room, the dim and soft glow rendering the atmosphere exceptionally quiet. Wanqing leaned against the sofa, sitting there so quietly without turning on the lights, her long hair half dry, and resting softly on her shoulders. The cotton pajamas complemented her, making her whole presence appear much softer. She lacked the usual sharpness of a female CEO, gaining a bit of softness that made one want to hold her in the palm of their hand. Just as I walked over while drying my hair, I saw her fingers pressing gently against her stomach, her brow slightly furrowed, her lip color so pale it was almost invisible. It was obvious her stomach was hurting again. When the pain grew intense, she would take a soft breath, yet she firmly refused to make a sound, her stubbornness tightening my heart. "Is it hurting again?" I kept my voice very soft, fearing I might startle her. She looked up at me, a lingering trace of agony still in the depths of her eyes, yet she habitually shrank back slightly first, pulling away to create some distance, her tone carrying her unique aloofness. It's nothing. Just an old issue. Don't mind me. That slight subconscious rejection was faint yet very obvious. I didn't press closer, only turning around to go to the kitchen and pour a glass of water that was just the right warmth. I also grabbed the stomach medicine and placed it on the coffee table in front of her, pushing it within her easy reach. Taking one will make you feel better. Remaining silent, she picked up the pill, took the water, tilted her head back and swallowed it, her throat moving gently, her action still elegant, yet lacking a bit of her usual composure. I stood to the side without sitting down, not saying another word. But before even half a minute passed, she suddenly let out a muffled groan, her body uncontrollably curling up a bit into the sofa. The griping pain in her stomach came both suddenly and heavily, turning even her fingertips white. My heart tightened as I took a step forward and squatted in front of her. It hurts a lot, doesn't it? She turned her face away, not wanting to expose her vulnerability in front of me, her voice trembling. I can manage by myself. Before she could finish her sentence, another wave of sharp spasms hit, making her entire body shudder slightly, unable to even sit steadily. I no longer hesitated, reaching out to gently support her lower back, while my other hand steadily scooped under her knees, intending to lift her up in a bridal carry. Just as I applied force, her whole body suddenly tensed up completely, and as if startled, she pushed me away with force. Her eyes filled with obvious resistance and panic. Don't touch me. Her voice was extremely strained, carrying a primal defensiveness. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, not out of shyness, but out of tension and rejection. For 3 years, we treated each other with mutual respect like guests. She had long grown used to not being touched by me, and was even less used to such sudden closeness. Looking down, I could see the tips of her reddened ears and smell the faint scent of body wash on her. The person in my arms was so light and soft, behaving incredibly well for once. I made my tone even softer and steadier. I won't do anything else, just carrying you back to lie on the bed. Propping your stomach up like that will make it hurt more. She looked at me, resistance and panic intertwining in the depths of her eyes, along with a trace of being at a loss. She could tell I meant no harm, but her bodily instincts still made it impossible for her to accept it immediately. After a 2-second stalemate, another wave of sharp pain hit her stomach, hurting so much that her vision blurred slightly. She could no longer maintain that stubborn toughness. Taking advantage of the moment she relaxed, I gently and quickly lifted her up in a bridal carry, keeping my grip very steady, while trying to be as gentle as possible, not giving her any sense of oppression. Su Wanking's body stiffened, subconsciously wanting to struggle, but the slightest movement pulled at her stomach, causing pain. She could only tightly clutch the corner of my pajamas, turning her face to one side, refusing to look at me, while the tips of her ears flushed burning hot. She didn't push me with force again, yet she didn't lean into me either, her entire body just remaining tensed up, like a little cat that had raised its spines but lacked the strength to resist, rejecting yet feeling helpless. Holding her, I took extremely slow steps, trying to keep as steady as possible so she wouldn't feel the slightest discomfort. For these few short steps, I walked with exceptional care. When I gently placed her onto the bed, she immediately shifted toward the inner side of the bed, her lips pursed very tightly, yet she didn't say any more words of refusal. I pulled the thin blanket over her and stood up. I proactively stepped half a step away from the bedside. Lie down properly. I'll go get a hot water bag to apply on it. It will feel much better. She didn't look at me, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible, carrying a touch of awkward gentleness. Got it. The light fell on her blushing ear tip, a tiny spot carrying a full sense of surprise and intimacy. I turned around and went to the kitchen, filling an old hot water bag with hot water and wrapping a layer of towel around it to avoid burning her. When I returned to the bedroom, she had already closed her eyes, her brow still slightly furrowed, her breathing shallow and unsteady. I gently placed the hot water bag on her stomach, pressing it through the blanket and gently rubbing it in circles twice. Her body shuddered imperceptibly, but she didn't dodge or open her eyes. This will make it feel a bit better. My voice was kept very low. She responded, her voice as faint as a buzzing insect. I tucked the blanket in for her properly, placing the hot water bag steadily by her stomach. Only after confirming she wouldn't be burned, did I step to the bedside on tiptoe. Sleep well? Call me if you need anything. I lowered my voice, turned around, gently shut the bedroom door, and returned to my own room. Closing the door, the world instantly became quiet. I sat back in front of the desk, turning the desk lamp onto its lowest setting, illuminating the disassembled drone parts on the table. That racing heartbeat and dry heat from earlier were forcefully suppressed by me. Now only calmness remained. I took a deep breath, picked up the screwdriver again, and focused squarely on the flight control board. Motor inspection, gimbal calibration, firmware reflashing, and frame reinforcement. Every step was done quickly and steadily. Outside the window, the night grew deeper, and the room was filled only with the subtle sounds of metal clinking and the clatter of the keyboard. Unsure of how much time had passed, both drones were completely repaired. Powering them on for testing everything was normal. I packed up the tools, cleaned up, and boxed them, confirming they could be delivered to collect payment tomorrow morning. After completing all of this, I finally let out a long That cold prompt in my mind flashed once again. Rebuild a 100 billion business empire within the 1 year time limit. I let out a scoffing laugh, turned off the desk lamp, and lay down on the hard plank bed. 100 billion is 100 billion. But let's live the present days well first. The master bedroom next door was very quiet. She should be fast asleep by now. I didn't think any further, closing my eyes and soon falling into a deep sleep. This night was not disturbed by any other sounds. Early the next morning, I woke up just as the sky was beginning to brighten. I got out of bed on tiptoe, trying my best not to make a single sound. After washing up, I went straight downstairs. There was a breakfast shop right at the entrance of the residential district. I didn't buy porridge this time, but instead chose warm millet cakes, steamed pumpkin sugar-free soy milk, and a basket of non-greasy vegetable buns. They were all nourishing for the stomach and filling. When I returned to the rental apartment, she happened to come out of the master bedroom. Her hair was still simply tied up, her face free of makeup, and her expression still wore that faint calmness. Not many emotions could be seen, nor was there any of that vulnerability from last night. Seeing me carrying breakfast in my hand, her gaze paused for a brief moment, showing no surprise nor too much expression. "You're awake. Have something to eat before heading to work." I laid out the breakfast items one by one on the table. She walked over and sat down quietly, picking up a piece of millet cake and eating it slowly. Without any extra words, the atmosphere remained plain, just like our pattern of getting along these past few days. But I could tell she was eating more seriously than usual. Every bite was very steady, with no perfunctoriness and no refusal. This was her unique way of accepting things, and her appreciation hidden beneath her cold demeanor. "Sorry to trouble you yesterday." I was stunned for a moment, before realizing she was referring to her stomach pain from that night. I smiled faintly, keeping it as casual as possible. "It's nothing, just what I should do." She didn't reply further, only lowering her head to continue eating. The flush on the tips of her ears fading a bit, turning so faint it was almost invisible. No ambiguity, no heart-fluttering excitement, only an extremely faint and restrained sense of gratitude. After eating, she picked up her bag, casually saying as usual, "I'm heading to work." "Okay, be careful on the road." As she opened the door, her steps paused for half a second. Without turning around, she only gave a soft "mm-hmm." The door was gently shut, and the apartment returned to quietness. I cleared the things from the table and looked into the second bedroom, at the 2 drones that were already repaired. Today, my first piece of repair money would be secured. I cleaned up the dining table, packed the 2 repaired drones into my tool bag, and headed out after making sure everything was correct. The early morning breeze was slightly cool, and there weren't many pedestrians in the residential district. I walked briskly all the way to the agreed aerial photography studio. The other party had already been waiting for a while. Seeing the machines as good as new, they conducted a test flight on the spot. The gimbals were stable, the motors were quiet, and not a single trace of the recent crash could be seen. "Brother, nice work. This speed and this craftsmanship are absolutely amazing." The person in charge transferred the money on the spot, giving 200 yuan, more than the agreed price, as an expedited fee. With a chime from my phone, 1,700 yuan cleared. But this was the very first sum of money I earned in this world, relying on my own 2 hands. I gripped my phone tightly, feeling much more grounded. There were no orders during the morning, so I lay on the bed and opened my laptop. In the original owner's laptop, there was a folder labeled 1-to-1. Curious, I opened it, and inside, there was only one single document. It was a diary written by the original owner. There was no title, only huge blocks of text. At a glance, it was clearly feelings casually typed down during his youth, with even the paragraphs being a messy jumble. As I slowly read down, 我的心脏一点点沉摇下去. Today is the first day of high school. I became desk mates with her. Her name is Su Wan King. She's the quietest person in the whole class, dressed neatly and cleanly, sitting perfectly straight. When speaking to anyone, her gaze is as cold as winter glass. The teacher said she was the top student who passed into the city-level high school, and her family background is great too. No one dares to get close to her. Staring at the screen, my fingertips paused slightly. It turned out they weren't just thrown together by their elders into a marriage after becoming adults. They had actually known each other long ago. My grades back then weren't bad either. One could even say they were top tier. It's just that my personality was wilder than hers, loving to mess around and laugh. Sitting next to her, I always felt this deskmate was too dull. Everyone else was afraid to talk to her, but I refused to be like them. I proactively chatted with her about problems, teachers, and where to grind exam papers over the weekend. She spoke very little, mostly just listening. Occasionally replying with 2 words could make me happy for half a day. Actually, from the very first glance I saw her, I couldn't tear my eyes away. It wasn't because she was beautiful, but because she was clearly so proud, yet not boastful at all. She was strong in humanities, and her science subjects weren't weak either. I was strong in science, especially physics. The 2 of us together made the most invincible deskmate combination in the entire class. When others ground exam papers, they were just killing time. But when we ground exam papers, we were competing against each other. She refused to lose, and I wouldn't concede defeat either. Competing like this, our grades soared up together. Some people said she was cold and hard to approach, but I felt she was just not used to speaking first. She wouldn't eat breakfast, so I would bring an extra portion. If her notes missed something, I would silently complete them and push them over. When people gossiped about her behind her back, I would straight up roast them back. The entire class could tell I treated her differently. It wasn't that she didn't know, she just didn't point it out. Before the college entrance exam, I joked with her, saying we would definitely go to the same university. She looked up at me, and for the first time proactively spoke a long sentence to me. Then let's see who gets the higher score. For those words, I worked harder than ever. It wasn't for anything else. I just wanted to continue being at the same school as her. On the day the results came out, I looked at our almost identical scores. The same university, the same city. I almost burst out laughing in the hallway. Back then I thought we would always keep walking forward like this. Same desk, same school, same path, same lane. The document stopped abruptly here, leaving nothing but blank space below, with no further text. I sat in front of the computer and remained silent for a long time. It turned out the original owner was never a piece of trash. During his youth, he had excellent grades and was dazzling and confident, with his heart and eyes completely filled with Su Wanqing. He was someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with her at the peak. It wasn't that he wasn't worthy, nor that he couldn't keep up. He used to be just as outstanding as her. Just when exactly did it begin? That this proud, dazzling youth turned his life into that of a decadent, squandering, and universally ridiculed freeloader. Was it a family misfortune? The gap of reality? Or that subsequent marriage that ground down their initial parity into self-abandonment? Continuing to scroll down, I discovered there was another hidden section of text. Between the lines, it was filled with shadow. Not long after university started, I confessed my feelings to her under the playground street lamps. Clutching the flowers, I was so nervous, my voice trembled. She didn't agree immediately, nor did she refuse. She just looked at me. Her eyes were very clear. I thought we would naturally get together until Liu Xiaoyi appeared, with an affluent family background and a lavish lifestyle. Every word he said reminded me of the gap between me and Su Wanqing. He said I wasn't worthy of standing at the peak with her, and that without money, I didn't even have the qualification to get close to her. Those words were like needles piercing me, making it hard to breathe. I began to panic and started to stubbornly believe that only money could make me worthy of her, and only money could keep her. I became eager for quick success, becoming anxious and distorted. The more I wanted to grasp something, the less I could hold on to it. Later on, I simply gave up completely, using squandering to numb myself and using indifference to disguise my insecurity, living as a freeloader that everyone looked down upon. I threw away my former pride, forgot our original intention of standing side by side, and pushed the person who loved me most further and further away. I was wrong, terribly wrong. If I could start over, I would never use absurdity to destroy all of our possibilities. And at the very end of the text, in the most inconspicuous corner, I gently clicked the mouse, popping up an old photograph that was hidden very deeply. The resolution wasn't high, as it was taken by a cell phone many years ago. The background was the stands of a high school sports field, with the setting sun dyeing the sky a light orange color. The youth Chen Yu, wearing a loose school uniform, smiled confidently and dazzlingly, with one hand resting on Su Wanqing's shoulder as he posed. His eyes were bright as if hiding starlight, and Su Wanqing just stood right beside him without pushing him away. This entry was written a month later, and the page looked as if it had been dampened by tears. Reading the final sentence, my fingertips tightened slightly, and I gently closed the document. The heartbeat of standing side by side in youth and the burning passion during the confession were ultimately crushed into dust by reality and obsession. That youth who once matched her perfectly, ultimately lived his life as the exact type of person he despised most. It was highly obvious that Liu Xiaoyi was acting out of pure malice toward them. They were a perfect match, a talented man and a beautiful woman. Yet he used the most despicable means to tear them apart. Perhaps my transmigrating here is meant to make up for the regrets left by the original owner. Staring at the darkened computer screen, my heart tightened instantly. Who could have imagined that back then Chen Yu was not a piece of trash at all? In university, he majorly studied drone engineering, while Su Wanqing studied finance. One was focused on technology and industry, while the other managed capital and controlled the big picture. They were clearly a top-tier powerhouse couple, yet they were forcefully torn apart by reality. With different majors, they drifted further apart, combined with Liu Xiaoyi's relentless verbal assaults. Without money, how can you be worthy of her? Stop living in your wishful thinking. Just a single sentence straight up broke that high-spirited straight-A student god, turning him into the later version who completely gave up, becoming a useless wimp who only knew how to be a freeloader. It wasn't that he lacked capability, he was just gaslighted by money to the point of self-abandonment. I didn't instantly get hot-headed. I just slowly moved the mouse, clicking through various industry pages one by one, quietly gathering information. The low-altitude economy, industrial drones, inspection projects, customization and repair, and supply chain prices. I examined them bit by bit, and memorized them step by step, reclaiming the professional knowledge that the original owner had long thrown to the back of his mind. This wasn't an impulsive counterattack born out of temporary excitement. It was about settling my heart to walk the path he failed to complete back then, step by step all over again. Before long, the phone on the corner of the desk began vibrating gently. It wasn't a series of urgent rings, but rather one quiet notification after another. I picked it up and took a glance. The background orders on the secondhand platform continuously displayed completed and received. Those listed Rolexes were all successfully sold one after another. I placed the phone back on the desktop, not rushing to plan how this sum of money should be used. There was no need to hurry. Instead, looking at those drone blueprints and parameters on the screen, a clear direction gradually formed in my mind. No rush, no impatience, and shouting no slogans. From this moment on, everything that was lost abandoned and missed would be slowly reclaimed piece by piece. At 6:30 p.m., I finished verifying all the remittances on the secondhand platform, with over 1 million yuan from selling the Rolexes sitting securely in my account. I hadn't touched a single cent of this money, as I already had a plan in mind. I saw from the original owner's diary that today happens to be our wedding anniversary. I turned and stepped into the kitchen. Today was different. I had specially bought extra groceries since the morning, and now I brought them all out. Fresh sea bass, prepped shrimp, crisp and tender broccoli, mushrooms, greens, a small section of ham, and some pork ribs with corn to simmer a soup. The sound of chopping soon echoed in the small kitchen. The knife wasn't sharp, so I chopped very slowly but steadily. Steamed sea bass, stir-fried shrimp, garlic broccoli, mushrooms with greens, corn and pork rib soup, plus a serving of tomato scrambled eggs. 6 dishes and 1 soup wasn't luxurious, but it was enough to cover the small old dining table completely. There were no candles, no fresh flowers, no sense of ceremony. I just made sure every single dish was clean, flavorful, and at just the right temperature. After finishing all of this, I cleaned up the kitchen, wiped my hands dry, and had barely sat on the sofa for 2 minutes before the door lock clicked softly. Wonking was back. She pushed the door open, habitually keeping her eyes cast down, her face carrying the exhaustion of the day, her shoulders slightly tensed, still carrying that forced defensive aura from the outside world. But in the very next second, her entire body froze. The aroma of food filling the apartment drifted straight into her nose, and as she looked up, her gaze landed on the dining table, her pupils contracting imperceptibly. A whole table of hot dishes was laid out neatly, with fresh appetizing colors, and a comforting fragrance, giving this shabby rental apartment a sudden cozy sense of home. She stood at the doorway for a long while without moving. "Why did you make so many dishes?" Her voice was very soft, carrying a trace of subtle bewilderment. I stood up, took the bag from her hand, set it aside casually, and spoke in a tone that couldn't be more natural. "The payment for today's repair work cleared, so I just happened to make a few extra dishes. I didn't mention the anniversary, didn't mention my feelings, and didn't mention the past. It was just, by the way." Su Wonking didn't call it out, nor did she ask further questions. She always had the habit of writing entries in her phone calendar. She simply changed her shoes quietly, walked over to the table and sat down. Her gaze gently swept across the dishes on the table, from the steamed sea bass to the stir-fried shrimp, and then to the corn and pork rib soup. Every single one was something she used to love eating, flavors that the original owner had memorized in his heart when he was courting her back then. She picked up her chopsticks and took a piece of sea bass. The meat was tender without any fishy smell, cooked to perfection. She ate in silence, one bite after another, showing no surprise, no visible emotion, and no outward expression. She just ate more seriously than usual, slower than usual, and finished more than usual. I sat opposite her, keeping her company quietly, not speaking, not staring, and not intentionally observing. Some things become cheap once you point them out explicitly. Halfway through the meal, she suddenly raised her eyes slightly, her gaze staying on my face for less than a second, before quickly dropping back to her bowl, the tips of her ears flushing ever so faintly, so faint it was almost invisible. She had noticed. She noticed that this wasn't just making a few extra dishes, by the way. She noticed today's date. She noticed the meaning of this table of food. She just said in a very low and calm voice, "It's delicious. If you like it, eat more." I pushed the shrimp she loved eating closer to her side, remaining completely calm as before. After finishing the meal, I stood up to clear the dishes. This time, Su Wonking did not say, "Let me do it," as she usually did. She just sat quietly in her original spot, watching my back as I carried the plates into the kitchen. When I came out after washing the dishes, she was still sitting on the sofa, her fingertips gently resting on the rim of her cup, gazing at the night view outside the window, lost in thought. The light fell on her profile, making her look soft, entirely unlike that female CEO who used to dominate the capital. I poured a glass of warm water and placed it by her hand. "Rest early." She gave a soft her voice as light as a feather. I walked toward the second bedroom, gently closing the door. "Wait a moment," she suddenly said. I was slightly startled. Just as I was about to close the door, my wrist was suddenly gripped gently. Su Wongking's fingertips were slightly cool, and the moment they touched my skin, she herself stiffened for a moment, quickly letting go, yet she still spoke, Come with me to a place tomorrow morning. I raised an eyebrow. Where to? She turned her face away, her voice as flat as water, yet hiding an imperceptible trace of tension. The wrap-up meeting for Sue Corporation. I understood. She wasn't asking me to go help. She was giving me a public stance in front of everyone. I Chen Yu am Sue Wang-King's man. Not that freeloader who would run away at any moment. I nodded, asking no further questions. Okay. I'll go with you. Early the next morning, Sue Wang-King, dressed in a sharp-cut black suit, without wearing a single piece of jewelry, with her long hair tied up neatly. She was as minimalist as she could possibly be, yet standing there, she was still the queen who once ruled 100 billion empire. Her spine was perfectly straight, her eyebrows clear, with elegance engraved deep in her bones. I changed into a clean ironed white shirt and black trousers, standing tall and poised with a calm composure. When the two of us stood together, we were still a dazzling pair that made it hard for people to look away. The meeting was held in an old brand office building downtown, inside a common business room. The moment we stepped in, the atmosphere was freezing cold. Those seated were all old foxes, creditors demanding debts, partners who had turned their backs on us, and several industry peers waiting to mock us. As the door was pushed open, all eyes instantly shot toward us, landing on the bankrupt Sue Wang-King before locking heavily onto me. Not a single person outright yelled, "Freeloader." But those looks, the smiles suppressed at the corners of their mouths, and that faint tone of sympathy were piercing in every word. Sue Wang-King sat down steadily, unhurriedly, gently placing a stack of organized accounts on the table. Her movements were still elegant and composed. Everyone is here, so let's begin. Her voice was calm and clear, instantly suppressing the noise in the room. What everyone is holding is the account statement I re-verified. 3 of the items were duplicate charges for platform service fees. 1 was an error in calculating overdue penalty interest. And there are 2 items of final supply chain payments that had already been paid before the bankruptcy liquidation. Only the vouchers were not archived. Her fingertips tapped gently on the paper, perfectly organized. What I, Sue Wang-King, should acknowledge, I will pay every single cent. What I shouldn't acknowledge, I won't pay a single penny more. As soon as her voice fell, a middle-aged man opposite immediately slapped the table, his tone full of pressure. President Sue, that's not how it works. The contract was signed back then in black and white. Now with a single sentence from you, saying it was calculated wrong, we are supposed to just accept the loss. Another partner wearing glasses also chimed in. We are just a small business too. As soon as the Sue Corporation fell, our cash flow was cut off completely. If you don't give us an explanation today, this meeting cannot proceed. Someone intentionally looked toward me, speaking sarcastically. Furthermore, President Sue doesn't even have anyone by her side who can lend a hand. If we don't press you, who are we supposed to press? These words openly stated, while implicitly pointing at me. Aside from being a freeloader, what else can your husband do? Sue Wang-King's brow furrowed slightly. Just as she was about to speak, I gently took half a step forward, shielding her by half a step, my calm gaze falling upon the account statement. I didn't look at anyone, only speaking out calmly, my voice not loud yet exceptionally clear. President Lee said the contract is in black and white, so let's proceed according to the contract. Sue Wang-King was just about to speak, but I held her hand down a step ahead of her. As an engineer, my sensitivity to numbers was engraved deep in my bones. With just a glance earlier, that string of penalty interest numbers felt off. I picked up a pen and calculated rapidly on the paper, the sound of the pen tip scratching across the page, sounding exceptionally sharp in the quiet meeting room. President Zhang, according to the daily interest rate you stated, the annualized rate is 24%. I stopped my pen and looked up at him, my expression completely calm. Although I am in technology, I also know that the current upper limit of legal protection does not exceed 4 times the LPR at most, which is 15.4%. I pointed at the numbers on the paper. If you insist on wanting the extra 8.6%, we can only meet in court. By then, I'm afraid even the principal will have to be recalculated. Furthermore, as for this final supply chain payment, the bank statements and receipt slips are all here. The money was paid long ago. If you calculate it again now, that would be duplicate collection. You are all business people, so you should count the accounts more clearly than me. President Sue is not defaulting on the debts. She only acknowledges the accounts she should acknowledge. Just as the atmosphere softened slightly, a man in the corner, who hadn't spoken the entire time, suddenly leaned forward with a fake smile. President Sue, I don't care about other people's accounts, but mine must be settled in cash today. Sue Wang-King looked up, her voice still calm. President Wang, I have calculated your account into the first phase within 1 month. Don't play that trick with me. The man interrupted, directly slapping his hand onto the table. I want 500,000 yuan right now. If it's short by a single cent, I'll immediately bring people to block your doorway. Let's see if you still care about your reputation. It was a blatant threat. Everyone looked over, waiting to see Sue Wang-King humiliated. Her fingertips tightened slightly and her complexion paled a bit. She truly couldn't produce this amount of liquid cash right now. My hand hanging by my side moved slightly. The money from selling the Rolexes had just cleared, and there happened to be an ample amount of liquid capital inside. That was the capital I had prepared to use for my startup, but now I didn't even knit my brows. I took a step forward, shielding Su Wanking, and looked calmly at that President Wang. 500,000 yuan, right. The man let out a scoffing laugh, his gaze sweeping over me, with complete disdain. What? You the freeloader. Want to pay it for her? Can you even bring it out? I ignored his mockery, only taking out my phone, my fingertips operating rapidly. Transferring now. A few minutes later, the notification sound of a bank deposit rang out exceptionally clearly in the quiet meeting room. The man picked up his phone to look, and his expression changed instantly. 500,000 yuan, not a single cent short. The entire room was stunned. Su Wanking also whipped her head up to look at me, her eyes completely filled with bewilderment. She immediately tugged at my sleeve, lowering her voice. Where did you get this money? This won't do. I turned my head and gently pressed her hand down, saying in a voice only audible to the two of us, using the watch selling money first. Pay me back later. Her fingertips trembled, and the way she looked at me changed. I turned back to look at that President Wang, my tone casual, yet carrying an unquestionable weight. The money is given to you. Sign the receipt now. If you dare to come and harass her again in the future, don't blame me for being ruthless. The man held his phone, unable to say a word for a long time. His arrogant aura from earlier instantly extinguished. He could only sign and leave his thumbprint dejectedly. The remaining accounts will be executed as discussed earlier. Legitimate debts, I won't delay by a single cent. Unreasonable demands, I won't yield by a single step. The meeting was completely brought under control. When everyone left the room, the way they looked at us had already gained a few hints of wariness. Su Wanking stood up, her posture still elegant and decent, giving me a slight nod before heading toward the restroom first. I stayed in place to pack up the documents. Just as I turned around, a figure blocked my path at an angle. Lin Jae-yuan. He leaned against the wall, looking decent in a custom-tailored suit, a half-smile hanging on the corners of his mouth. His gaze slowly swept over me, his eyes so dismissive it was as if he were looking at an ant blocking the way. A few people around who hadn't left the room yet instantly slowed their steps in sync, pretending to organize their things while pricking up their ears, just waiting to watch the good drama unfold. You and she were never from the same world to begin with. Before you relied on her to support you, now you rely on her to keep up appearances. Do you really stand beside her without feeling embarrassed? If I were you, I would have disappeared on my own long ago, saving her from being dragged down. You should also see things clearly. At a time like this, the only person who can pull her out of the quagmire is me. The person who can give him resources, give him dignity, and help him make a comeback is also me. He and I belong to the same world. At most, you are just an extra burden, while he is in distress. As his voice fell, the smile on his face grew colder, carrying a condescending sense of charity and dismissal. Not a single swear word was used, nor was there any direct insult calling me names. Yet every single sentence was capitalizing on everyone's stereotype of me. It was sinister, precise, and left no room for retaliation. I slowly raised my eyes, not losing my temper, not panicking, and showing none of the embarrassment of having a sore spot poked. Instead, the warmth in my eyes faded bit by bit, becoming as still as a layer of ice. The matters between him and me are not yet open for an outsider to dictate. The contemptuous smile at the corner of his mouth deepened, and he leaned half a step closer, his tone carrying a certainty of holding all the winning cards. Lowering his voice, he stabbed at my heart word by word. You don't really think that he and I are just ordinary friends, do you? Wanking and I grew up together since childhood. We are childhood sweethearts who know everything about each other, what he liked and hated as a child, and how he would react when facing trouble. I know 100 times better than you. When he was in his glory, you only knew how to stretch out your hand for money. Now that he is in distress, you can't do anything except add to his troubles. What do you have to compare with me? The person he truly keeps by his side has always been me. You are nothing but a decoration forced upon him in high school. A joke. As soon as these words fell, the eavesdroppers around let out a cold gasp. Childhood sweethearts. Then wouldn't today's drama be the rightful owner coming to the door to kick out the freeloader? Everyone's gaze, filled with the excitement of watching a show, landed on me, piercing like needles. My eyes turned a few degrees colder. Yet, I still didn't fly into a rage. Childhood sweethearts. Do you really think I haven't read that diary of the original owner? Or haven't seen that old photo of the high school sports field? Su Wanking's youth was exceptionally detached. From beginning to end, there was only one Chen Yu, and it didn't have a damn thing to do with this guy in front of me. Just as I was about to speak, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly came from behind me, instantly suppressing all the noise in the entire corridor. How come I didn't know that I had an extra experience of growing up together with someone since childhood? Everyone whipped their heads around. Su Wanking stood not far away, her posture still straight and elegant, her long hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes cold and clear without a single ripple. But that aura emanating from her very bones made the entire hallway fall silent the moment she appeared. My high school friend circle never included you. When I truly got to know you was at a university business cocktail party. By then, we were both already adults. Young Master Lin better not toss around the term childhood sweethearts carelessly. If it gets out, others will only mock you for having to fabricate even a basic acquaintance. As her voice fell, the surroundings instantly filled with the sound of collective gasps. The confident smile on Lin Jae-won's face froze dead on the spot, turning green, and then white, humiliated to the absolute limit. He never expected in his wildest dreams that Su Won-king wouldn't save him a shred of face in public, straight up tearing his disguise to shreds. Standing to the side, I had only one thought in my mind: keep pretending. Go on and keep pretending. Do you really think everyone else has amnesia? The smile on Lin Jae-won's face instantly stiffened, his expression turning green and white by turns, almost unable to hold his composure under everyone's stares. But he quickly pulled back that mask of holding all the winning cards, taking a step forward with his arrogance, lowering his voice even further, yet making it clear enough for the few people around to hear, fully loaded with a sense of superiority. Fine. Even if we aren't childhood sweethearts, so what? I came here today precisely to give her an opportunity. The Lin family is willing to inject 300 million yuan of capital to revive her remaining project resources. Network and channels, I will pave the way for all of it for her. As long as she gives a nod, she can stand back up tomorrow. What I can give her is a return to the peak. All you can give him is a rental apartment, egg noodles, and this pathetic bit of emotional comfort. You aren't even worthy of carrying his shoes. To the current Su Won-king, this was simply a life-saving straw. Everyone felt that Su Won-king would definitely agree, and had to agree. Lin Jae-won crossed his arms, his face written all over with certainty. He was certain Su Won-king couldn't hold out, certain he would bow his head for money, and certain he would abandon a husband like me who had absolutely nothing. I slowly raised my eyes. There was no trace of panic in my eyes, only a patch of still and quiet coldness. Just as I was about to speak, I felt as though my throat were blocked by something, unable to find a reason to counter. The chips thrown out by Lin Jae-won were like a giant boulder, smashing onto my heart. I clenched my fist tightly, my nails almost embedding into my flesh. Reason told me, agree to it. Su Won-king can save 10 years of struggle, and I can also complete the mission to return to my own world. This is a win-win. But looking at Su Won-king's still straight back, my heart felt a pain as if cut by a knife. I cannot do this. I can accept failing the mission and staying here forever, but I cannot accept him giving up the radiance that originally belonged to him for my sake. That cold, clear, and elegant voice from behind softly rang out once again. Su Won-king walked over step by step, without urgency, without panic, and without a single half bit of wavering from being struck by big money. His spine was perfectly straight, his eyebrows clear, still that queen who had fallen from the clouds, yet whose strength of character had not diminished in the slightest. He walked up to my side, not looking at Lin Jae-won, only linking his arm through mine naturally and gently, his movements composed, his posture resolute, and his stance entirely clear. Only then did he slowly raise his eyes to look at Lin Jae-won. And then he spoke. Her gaze was calm, without anger, and without harshness, carrying only a sense of distance and nobility that emanated from her very bones. I appreciate young Master Lin's kind intentions. 300 million yuan is indeed a lot, enough to make many people bow their heads. Just as a triumphant smile appeared on Lin Jae-won's face, Su Won-king's next sentence instantly crushed all of his superiority into dust. But even if I Su Won-king fall into the mud, I will never rely on someone else's charity to stand back up. I am in a difficult spot right now, but I have hands and feet, I have a team, and I have boundaries. The expression on Lin Jae-won's face completely froze, shifting from smugness to bewilderment, then to utter humiliation, and finally turning deathly pale. The capital and family background he was so proud of, along with his chip of 300 million yuan, became as flimsy as a joke. In front of her stance, Su Won-king didn't give him another look. She linked her arm through mine and gave a slight nod, her posture remaining elegant and decent as always, as she turned and walked away. The two of us walked side by side down the corridor. She was cold and proud, while I was steady and reliable. Even if dressed in poverty, we were still so dazzling that people didn't dare to look at us directly. Lin Jae-won was left frozen in place, becoming the biggest laughingstock in everyone's eyes. The elevator door slowly closed, leaving only the two of us. In the small space, she didn't let go of my hand. Her profile was calm and soft, while the tips of her ears quietly flushed with a faint redness. After a long while, she finally spoke softly, her voice as light as a feather. Thank you for just now. I looked down at her hand linked through my arm, replying softly, the one who should say thank you is me. Thank you for not letting me lose. She raised her eyes to look at me, the distance fading from her gaze for the first time, and her eyes curved into a gentle smile, like ice and snow beginning to melt. The elevator descended slowly, heading toward the light outside.